Okay, we're going to start with the first sentence of the 계사상전, or the first part of the Confucian commentary on the I Ching. Okay, so let's call this the upper canon and the 계사하전 the lower canon. This is the first part of the upper canon, and there are 12 major parts with several different sections, several different sentences. The first sentence is 전존 지비하니 공군 이 정위요. This basically means that we have heavens, character for heaven, above, and the earth is below. This is the location or the correct order or correct place for the first and the second hexagram. So the first hexagram is Qian in Chinese, or Gon, okay, and that represents a heaven above, okay. And then we have the second hexagram of the I Ching, which is Gon or Gun in Chinese, and this represents earth below. So Confucius is talking about how heaven above is represented by the first hexagram and earth below by the second. And this is the correct location or the correct order of things. 비고이 진하니 귀천이 위위요. Okay, so this is, again, the character here we see the same for lower, and this is upper. Okay, so the lower and the upper are defined. So this is the character for represented or defined as or manifest as. Character for that is Jin. Okay, and these two here, Kwi-chan is profit or gain, which is Kwi, and Chan is loss. Okay, and then this one here is the position. Okay, so what this is saying is that when the upper and the lower come together, heaven and earth come together and manifest, they manifest as the ability to understand what gain and loss is. And this is where we get the lines of the I Ching. So each line of the I Ching is wi, which means position. Okay, each line of the I Ching represents either profit or loss, gain or loss. Gain can be seen as represented by the heavens or the above. Loss can be seen by me or below, the earth below. Okay, so life is constantly a give and take, and one way of looking at the I Ching is seeing that loss is just as much of a benefit as gain is. And that's what Confucius is saying here, that when heaven and earth come together, there's going to be naturally profit and there's going to be naturally loss. Okay, when we look at the I Ching as a divination, we tend to be excited when there's profit coming our way and tend to be saddened when there isn't. The I Ching always admonishes against that type of thinking, that when there is loss, there is introspect. And that's what this bi means, looking inwards, okay? 자 bi, looking inwards, looking in oneself. And when there's profit, it's going outwards, reaching above, which is this goal, which means height or growth, okay? 동종유 상하니 강유 단위요. Basically what this means is dong means movement and this means quiet. Okay, so again he's comparing heaven and earth. Heaven is movement and earth is quiet. Okay, so heaven is yang and earth, this character here, is yin, quiet. Yu sang yao. Sang means everyday existence. In every moment, in every single moment of our existence, we will have the movement and the we will have movement and non-movement, okay, in every moment of life. The non-movement is the static, okay, the non-changing, non-conforming, and the movement is the conforming. So this character here means non-movement, but it also means quiet, calmness, relaxation. And here, this character has both the character for heaviness and strength. So the fact that every moment of life has both movement and non-movement is depicted by the decision. Now the decision here, Tanyao, we're talking about the decision of the I Ching, okay, making decisions based on the environment that we're in, if it's a favorable, profitable environment or not. So who decides that? That decision is made, of course, by us, okay, based on how we understand the I Ching and how we understand its philosophy. Okay, this Gangyu is hard and soft. Okay, hardness correlates with heaven, and softness with earth. Hardness with yang, and softness with yin. Okay, this hardness and softness is manifested in all things. So we're talking about every moment, every second. Okay, we have the manifestation of energy as hard and soft. Okay, so everything we see, everything we do, this video that you're watching has components of hardness and softness to it. Okay, and this is what is represented by movement and non-movement. Okay, so when we talk about down here again, we're talking about making the decision based on making decisions in our life based on whether it is favorable, non-favorable, whether something is firm or something is loose, whether we need to move or we need to stay quiet. So that is something that exists in every moment of our lives. So we have heaven and earth as the big picture, okay, above and below, and then we have them coming together and forming profit, having together and forming the concept of profit and loss, and then based on that making a decision on when to move and when not to move in our lives. So here we have the non-manifest or the metaphysical, and then we have the two non-manifest metaphysical aspects of heaven and earth coming together. Okay, here they are coming together, and then once they come together, they manifest. Okay, what are we going to do with that energy? And that's in the third line. The second line is 비고이 진하니 귀천이 위위요. Basically, this means that what is below and what is above. So this character here means below. Bi, you see it here as earth below, and ko is heaven. Okay, ko means up above, so heaven up above. 이진하니. Jin means to come together and manifest. Okay, so the character for coming together and manifest, or to reveal or display. Okay, so when up above and down below come together, we have Kichun. Ki means elite or noble. Okay, and Chun means lowly or humble. Okay, so heaven and earth come together and establish the positions of humble and elite. Okay, so in our lives, there are times when we need to be humble and times where we need to stand strong and take control. And this is represented by the coming together of heaven and earth. This character for Hui also is used to describe each line of the hexagram. Remember, there are 6 lines, okay? And each line will have a very specific position, and this Hui represents position. So depending on where the position is in the hexagram, that will help define it as whether, that will help us understand whether or not it is in a highly position or a low position. Okay? The lines of a ball, especially the sixth line of each hexagram, represents a very high position, noble position, whereas the first line represents a very humble position. But this doesn't mean that the sixth line is any better than the first line. As a matter of fact, the sixth line of the hexagrams in the I Ching is usually described as being not so favorable. To illustrate this fact a little further, let's look at two hexagrams. We have the 23rd hexagram, which is Sanji Bakwe, okay, mountain, earth, casting off, or shaving off, ridding, okay? And then we have the 24th, which is Jire Bokwe, which is earth, thunder, return, okay? So first of all, let's look at why these hexagrams have these names. Throughout the I Ching, you'll see mountain, earth, thunder, and these other ways of describing the trigrams. So this here is the mountain trigram, okay? And this is earth. So the 3 yin broken lines represents earth, and the 1 yang with 2 yin underneath represent the mountain. Again, we have Ji, earth, see? So 3 yin lines. And then we have 2 yin lines above a yang line, which is Re, which means thunder, okay? Thunder. Okay, so getting back to these two. So casting off, even though this line up here is in the 6th highest position, most noble position, it is not in a favorable place. And that's why this hexagram is named cast off. So basically these yin lines are ridding themselves, getting rid of, exiling the noble on the top. Okay, so this is a very dangerous position to be, and in this position the gentleman says, oh, okay, this is when I really need to be humble. So not revealing my power, but reaching inwards and accepting the fact that I am going to be casted off, that my way is not going to be the way of the common people, okay, or people around me. So the next hexagram, so again, this is the sequence. We have casting off, and then we have return. So the energy here was casted off, but here we see it returning. Yang is being cast away from the noble position, but here it is returning in a humble position. So whereas this line here is not auspicious, even though it's noble, okay? Here it is very auspicious, because everything above, it's a clear slate. The pathway is open, okay? Opportunity awaits. So this Pokwe means to return, is a very auspicious place for this yang line, but not so much up here, even though it yields a lot of power. If it uses this power, its destruction will be intense. If it is humble and contains this power, when it returns, it will also be very, very strong. So the more elite or the noble, high aspects correlate with heaven, and the lower, more humble, modest areas correlate with the earth. Let's take a look at some of these characters in further detail. The ancient sages of the past always had a deeper meaning behind what they were saying. So each character, each Chinese character that was used to describe the I Ching, or Confucius used to comment on the I Ching, was well thought of. In other words, each character that was used in the I Ching can have different meanings depending on its context. Sometimes Confucius and other philosophers of the past would think about the character in many different ways, in several different ways, before they used it in their text or in their writing. And the reason for this was because they wanted to encompass several different meanings with each character. Also, to encompass the philosophical meaning, the deeper meaning behind the word. Okay. Let's start with the very first character here, which is in Korean pronunciation chun, or heaven. Heaven has here two lines on the top and two lines flowing through. So to draw this character, we would draw it like this. One line, another line, one line going through, and another line going through. Inside this character, there is a radical, and the radical is for human. This is the radical for human. And notice that it's depicted by two lines. And if either of these lines fell or were taken away, the other would fall. So, to be human means to be interdependent. The upper line represents heaven. The lower line represents earth. The two lines in between represent human. Notice how human is seen as the connection between heaven above and earth below. Okay? The human is the connection between the three samjejido, heaven, earth, and man. Man being in the center, man being the connection between heaven and earth. The character for three in Chinese is basically three lines. Okay? So with heaven, we take the line in the middle out, which is for human, and we connect it this way. Okay? So this explains how heaven and earth being horizontal energy and humanity being the vertical that connects the two. Now, let's take a look at the character for earth, or Ji in Korean. This one right here. This character also has two radicals. The first one is this one. And the second one is this. This radical in itself represents earth. Okay, so just this part is the word for to in Korean, which means earth or soil. Okay, so but connected with this, it means earth in general. Okay, so geography. Okay, the planet, right? Earth. Further broken down, this radical has two radicals within. The one on top is the radical for heaven, okay? And the one on the bottom is for earth. Now what do we mean, the radical for heaven? Heaven is represented by the number 10 in Chinese numerology, okay? Heaven is represented by number 10. 10 in Chinese is written like this. Okay? It's a cross. Okay? Both vertical and horizontal connecting. Okay? Time is the horizontal and space is the vertical. Connection between time and space is one way of depicting heaven. Okay? So heaven is represented by 10, and this is the Chinese character for 10. The earth number is 1, okay? And this is the Chinese character for 1, is horizontal, okay? So, heaven above, represented by 10, earth below, represented by 1, okay? And what is the number that represents humanity? This is the number 5, okay? So, 10, 5, 1. From the standpoint of heaven, the energy flows this way, okay? From the standpoint of Earth, the energy flows this way. From humanity, it is the connection between heaven and earth and can flow both directions. Yang flowing up within the body, yin flowing down. If humans grow, we are facing heavens. If we lay down at night, sleep, earth. We can look at this as the numerology for past, present, and future, whereas 1 represents the past, the future is 10, and 5 in the middle is the present. Human beings live in the present. Okay? So these are the numbers that represent the Samjejido, heaven, earth, and man. Now we have the radical on the right. The radical on the right means connection. Okay, so we have one line here. We start with this, and then we start with the second line, and then we connect it with the third. This means connection. It also means endless continuation, without beginning or end. If we combine these two radicals, we are saying that there is an endless connection without beginning or end between heaven and earth, between 10 and 1. And now let's talk about this character here. In Korean it's gon. Gon is the very first hexagram of the I Ching, and gon is the second. Okay? So the very first trigram of the I Ching is represented by 6 solid lines. Okay? This also represents heaven. The gon second hexagram is represented by 6 broken lines. And this represents earth or yin. Okay? The yin lines are broken and the yang lines are solid. Yang is penetrating, strong. Yin is receiving and soft. This character right here, Zheng. Zheng is a very interesting character. It has many different meanings. A simple meaning would be to reside, okay, or to take place. The philosophical meaning behind Zheng is to be steadfast in one's path, along one's path, to be righteous. Okay, and how do we get that? Well, when we write this character, first we write the radical for house, or body, okay, or mind. And then we write the character for correctness, righteousness, solid. Okay. So we combine the two together and we have solidity of the mind. Okay. So in this sentence we are saying that heaven and earth, heaven above and earth below, are represented by the first and second hexagrams. This is what makes all things reside in the proper place. With this in mind, we can all be steadfast along our path. The Gon and Gon hexagrams represent all phenomena of the earth, everything in the earth, everything we see. And to know those two hexagrams, to really understand them, is to know all 64 hexagrams. Here, let's talk about this character right here, Jin. Okay, low, high. Okay, connected or bestowed or displayed. That's what this character means, okay? So when we break down this character, we break it down into 2. On the left we have one radical, and on the right we have another. This is a very different. On the left is the character for hill. On the right is the character to hold, to throw. Okay, this is also the character for east. Okay, so the sun, which is represented in this radical right here, rises to the east over the hill. This is when it becomes apparent. This is when we can see it, when it manifests. Okay, so this is what this character means, to be able to see for the first time, be able to manifest for the very first time. The radical here, as we said, has sun inside, and then we have inside that radical. Okay, so this is the character for sun, and this is wood. As you can see, wood is also in this inside this radical. And wood is the very first thing that comes out of the ground. So wood is represented by the very first movement on earth. We call it in Korean, it is called in Korean chomo, and it's represented by the very first heavenly branch of the 10 heavenly branches and the 12 earthly stems. So here we're talking about manifesting. The low and the high manifest as the noble and the humble. Okay, the noble and the humble, these are two very interesting characters. Okay, let's take a look. Both of these characters have within it the radical for shell. Shell. Okay, the radical for shell. The one for the Chinese character for noble or grand or splendid or highly, okay, worthy, has this on top. Okay, what does this radical mean? Well, it's actually two radicals. Okay, the first one on top is this radical. It means inside. And the second one, again, is one. Okay, character for one. So inside the shell there is one thing that is very valuable, that is sacred, that is important. We're talking about the pearl inside the shell, okay, or the meat inside the shell. That is what is noble from the standpoint of this character. This is the character you see here. This is the character for humble or lowly. Okay, so the same radical for shell is on the left, but for the right we have the radical for dregs. Okay, leftovers, remainder. Okay, can mean remainder or loss. So here we're talking about the discarded part of the shell. Okay, without anything left inside. Here we're talking about the importance of what is inside the shell. Okay, so when we're talking about the philosophy of the I Ching, we're talking about the philosophy of Confucius. We are talking about what is inside, not necessarily what is manifest, but the importance of what is inside. Inside you, inside me. Okay, this is what is meant by highly or noble. Okay, and this is what is meant by the loss of that, the inability to find it within us. Okay, so the high go and the low pi. Okay, I Ching manifestation 하니 비찬이 위. Yeah, whoa. This is what is represented by we. Okay, we. We means position. If we look at the radicals, we have on the left side the radical for human, and this is to stand. Okay, humanity standing. Here we're talking about the lines of the hexagrams. Remember we said before, this is the hexagram for gon, the first hexagram, okay? And it has 6 solid lines. Well, li represents each one of these lines. So the first li would be the one on the bottom, and the last li would be the one on the top, okay? So this is what is meant by position of the hexagram. But also when we're talking about position of the hexagram, we're also talking about position that we are in our life, in this moment, okay? So this is why the character for human, the radical for human, is included in this character. So there are so many hidden meanings in each one of these characters, and that's why it makes the I Ching and the Confucian commentary of 10 Wings very difficult to translate. And why I'm explaining to you right now just how important it is to look at each one of these characters from several points of view